Welcome to A Valid Answer. This is episode 3 now of our podcast. We are on a roll. That's right. We've consistently been able to do this, and we're going to try to keep it going every fortnight.
All right. Every 20 days, huh?
I thought a fortnight was 2 weeks.
It's 20 days, but anyway.
Anyway, see what I learned in school? In school, I learned it was every 2 weeks, every fortnight.
Roughly. Probably more like every 3 weeks, but what have you.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to try every 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So,
right.
A Valid Answer is a podcast with myself and my friend Marshall. I'm Scott Garcia. I'm a pastor, and Marshall is an atheist.
Yep.
A heathen.
Yep.
But this podcast is about how opposites can still get along civilly and have civil discussions and intellectual discussions and still be friends and still be humans to each other. Because that's what I think is missing in this world, is people don't see people they disagree with as still being another human being.
Yeah, I think the secret to that is to recognize that the argument is just that. It's just an argument. It's not a critique of you, the person. Even if I think your argument is dumb or foolish, let's say, or absurd, doesn't mean that I feel that you, the person, are that way, because we all kind of sometimes believe ridiculous things, and we get taken in by fallacies and our biases. And so all of us at some point or another will be caught thinking or saying or believing something ridiculous. And if somebody points that out, it's not necessarily a criticism of you, the person. It's just a critique of the idea. And again, the correct behavior is to think, well, maybe I am wrong about that. Let's change my point of view.
Yeah. And again, it's like a lot of times people are attacking the person. Like they shouldn't be. Let's attack the argument. Let's discuss the argument. Let's point out the fallacies. Let's do all kind of stuff. But people just digress into just this, well, that's an idiot. That's an evil person. That's a, whatever name they want to come up with. And I find, I don't deal with people who, as soon as you go into name calling on both sides, somebody says the Democrats or the Republic, whatever. What's the
I don't know.
Derogatory
just
term.
Republicans suffices for me.
Yeah.
You Republican.
But when you're already starting off with calling the person a name and not referring to and not thinking of them as another human being, then you've already lost the argument. You're already not worth listening to. And I always want to make sure I remain worth listening to by treating the other person as a human being, as you're doing. So we're on our 3rd episode here of A Valid Answer, and sometimes the answer could be I don't know, and that's still a valid answer, and we'll research it and look it up. But we kicked it off a few weeks ago, just diving right into the gun debate and then talking about that kind of led into the role of government, and the laws and enforce stuff like that. And now I want to kind of shift it a little more theologically and start considering what is the role of God, what is the role of church in society? Is there a need for God and church in society? I obviously believe that there is, and I believe that is literally the missing link, to steal a I believe that is the missing link in our society right now, and why society is crashing so hard is that society as a whole has rejected God and spirituality and the church as a whole. But that's my belief. You probably have a different belief. But do you, as an atheist, think that there is a place for God or a place for the church in society? And we'll get into in government later, because that's a completely different. I'm just saying in society. Remember, you're being quoted as representing every atheist in the world.
Right.
So
I do want to say I only speak for myself, and there are a lot of atheists out there that are actually anti-theists. They kind of go one step further, and they actively seek or hope for the destruction of churches. They think religion is a terrible and poisonous idea, that it's responsible for a lot of the harm that we see in the world today. My thinking is that if we were to grant the anti-theist dream, and we were to wave a magic wand, let's say, and eliminate all church, all religion, all forms of supernatural belief, I kind of think we would still find something else to go at each other over. So that doesn't mean, I'm a theist. It just means I think there is certainly a practical role that church and religion and faith can play, even though to me it's in the realm of superstition. It's false belief.
Is there,
but
going that way, is there a role for superstition in human beings? Is there, if you want to say it is just superstition, well, is there a valid reason for a superstition in human beings?
Yeah, I think superstitions arise. I'm not an expert on superstition, but I'll tell you, I think they arise from artifacts of the past, I guess. I'm trying to find a way, the right idea, the right words to explain the thought here, that in the past, perhaps, you didn't walk underneath ladders because things could fall down. They didn't have workplace safety. So you just
If
learn.
you want to watch a video on that, search for Impossible by my son, Gabriel.
Oh, okay.
Was that
just a commercial?
No, well, no. He literally just won second place in a film festival for a movie that he made, a short film called Impossible, about all this bad luck that happens to people because they walk under a ladder. It's just so funny that you mentioned that. You just last week.
Okay, well, since we're on a commercial break,
ChristianYouthFilmFestival.org.
Where do you find it?
ChristianYouthFilmFestival.org. The video will be posted up on there. But yeah, just a little plug there. You're welcome, Gabe.
So my point is there are reasons why superstitions emerge. Now they become useless artifacts over time, but there is certainly a reason why they developed to begin with.
How about the longevity of stories? What about the longevity of something like the belief of Christianity, that it has survived over the centuries? Does that give it more credit than something else that no longer is around?
Well, I think we get into where religion comes from, because it's believed that, like, the ancient Neanderthal practiced some form of religion. They practiced ritual burial of their dead. They buried their dead whenever they could in a fetal position. They would cover them with flowers, and they would leave offerings, like actual tools, which back in that time would be like burying somebody with their car or their house. That's what tools were, the value of tools back then. And the tools would not be broken or anything. They would be completely usable and intact. So that suggests they believed that the person would take these tools with them somewhere. If these people were like, apes or monkeys and believed that, well, they dropped dead and that's that and nobody cares, they wouldn't have these types of burials. So there's some kind of religious belief. And so religion is sort of hardwired into us. We are programmed to have belief. I'm not sure why that is. That does not necessarily mean that a God exists. It does not necessarily mean that the Christian God in particular exists. It just means that we had some biological use, like a superstition for religion, at some point in the past, and it's persisted to this day.
So
there are people who still won't walk under ladders.
Yeah,
and actually, it's common sense, but yeah,
Well, if there's somebody on the ladder, don't walk under it because they could drop something on you. That makes sense. But, but taking it to a scientific level, we've never seen a black hole.
Yeah, we have.
No, we see they measure a black hole by the effects of the things around it.
Right. We can observe it, but black holes are not completely black. That's one of the things that Stephen Hawking revealed or figured out. Was Hawking radiation. My point is, they actually emit some kind of radiation.
Right, but my point is the measurement of it is by how it affects the things around, how it affects the things around it, not by it in of itself.
Okay,
right. And I find it interesting that, yes, there seems to be a human need for belief. There seems to be something hardwired into us for belief that does not make any scientific sense, yet it's still there.
Well, the black hole does make scientific sense. It's just we don't fully understand what happens in a black hole, because you get to the point of the singularity where sort of the laws of physics appear to break down. We just don't understand. We've only been working on the laws of physics probably since Newton in the 17th century, and we've really only made progress in the 20th century and now into the 21st century. So maybe 110, 120 years have we really been working on this problem, and only in probably the last 30 or 40 years have we actually had the data to really kind of crack the mystery of black holes. We're really just getting started. In another 100 years, we might solve these mysteries. So I don't think it's, science certainly isn't a faith-based.
No, I wasn't.
System. Okay.
I was just saying the idea that why is there this hole in human beings that they feel is needed to be filled with something supernatural? That there is belief, that there is something in us that you ascribe is like it's there. There's something in us that doesn't make necessarily biological or scientific sense, yet it's still there and it still exists. Does it make rational sense to deny that? Does it make rational sense to deny that is a need?
Well, a lot of people live just fine without religion and without belief.
Right, but they still have that hole in them. They still have that desire to fill something with belief.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess you'd have to ask. There'd be a lot of people who would deny that they have a hole inside them. I feel perfectly happy and fulfilled in my atheism. In fact, I feel pretty good.
Why do you engage in philosophy?
Well, because philosophy helps us to think and make decisions and make sense of the world around us.
Why do you need to make sense of the world around you?
Because I live and engage with the world all the time. I want to comprehend it, so I make good decisions and
why do you want to comprehend it?
Better, more fulfilling life. Because this is all I get. So
right,
I have
but
to
I'm saying
maximize this life.
Why is more knowledge or why is more discussion of philosophy? How is that going to make you happier?
Well, it helps me to, again, make sense of this life. Remember, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
The
more I engage in philosophy, the better I can make sense of the world around me.
What I'm getting at is, why do you need to make sense of the world around you?
Well, because I'm a rational creature, and I get more fulfillment out of life understanding what goes on around me. I want to have a handle on things.
Maybe there's a hole in your life that you're trying to fill.
Maybe, but you'd have to make that case to me. So
no, I'm saying you just made that case. You keep saying, "I want to find out more."
I don't see how I made that case.
You keep saying, "I want to find out more." By finding out more, by discovering more, is going to make me happier, going to make me better, so. Literally, if you want more, it means that there is a cavity that you have that needs to be filled. If you keep wanting,
that's a good way to put it.
You're trying to fill the hole in your soul with philosophy.
Well, with knowledge.
And with knowledge, right.
I want to live every day of my life learning something new. And if it were theoretically possible to fill my head with all of the answers and all of the information in the entire universe, I think I would go ahead and push the button and download all that.
What I'm getting is I feel that in itself is proof of the idea that there is an emptiness in us that we are constantly trying to fill.
Okay, so let's say I grant this.
That's what separates.
It sounds reasonable.
That's what separates. I mean, a computer is told to find information. A human being has to, as part of who they are, have to keep, because a computer doesn't have a hole that it has to keep, that it has a fundamental
I can still install one more program on this computer.
But you know what I mean? There is an instinctual emptiness in human beings that is constantly grasping for more. I need to have more. Whether it's things or information or something, there is an emptiness inside of human beings that is constantly struggling to be fulfilled.
Okay, so why would we conclude that's supernatural? It could be biological and just poorly understood.
Okay. But I'm still saying there's a biological,
Oh, I'm certain there's a physiological explanation for it. Now, whether or not that is evidence for something supernatural is a whole nother leap.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just getting to I'm trying to get to the point where we're saying
it could also be programmed into
search.
us by society. It could be something that's programmed. I mean, if we took
pretty long.
babies
If you're going back to Neanderthal, I mean, it's pretty ingrained in human beings beyond society, and it exists in every society. And in every even societies that they recently discovered, there's still ideas of belief.
Humans are naturally curious. That's the reason why we've taken over kind of the whole planet.
Cats are curious too, but they're not. But they don't. It's not the same thing.
Well, they don't.
Animals are curious too.
They don't have all of the traits that humans have, which is our ability to communicate, our ability to make tools, our ability to adapt to the environment, and our ability to adapt the environment to us.
What
We have
in biology and science makes humans different? Because religion has an answer of what makes humans different.
right. Well, I think it's a lot of things, but it appears to be centered in the brain. And the brain has this incredible capacity for processing knowledge, for doing logic. You know, the brain is even capable of doing calculus without you really knowing calculus. Every time you catch a football while running at the same time, your brain is literally doing some rudimentary form of calculus.
There was a time when I crumbled up a piece of paper. I want to throw it in the trash can. And I literally stopped and thought, how did my body know exactly how much force to put and release it? It's, I mean, I guess it comes down to just experience, but I've done it so many times that my body just remembers it. So
yeah, you've got some
but each thing is a different
But-
weight. This is
right.
a different weight. So my body, that's cool.
Yeah, no, our brains are
So much more
incredibly
powerful in our subconscious than in our conscious.
our brains are incredibly powerful, right? And so I think certainly there's a physiological explanation for all of these things, and even if we don't know the answer, doesn't mean that it necessarily has a supernatural answer.
Okay, so going to that, if a supernatural answer is a big leap, yet human beings make that leap, and there's evidence that human beings making this leap, in a general sense, causes betterment in their life and causes betterment in the life of others, why would we not embrace that as a society? Why would we start to reject that? Because we used to embrace it as a society. Everybody knew there were good people, there were bad people. Everybody knew, you do these bad things, God's going to punish you type thing is the idea that people had. And now now we've come full circle to where you can't tell me that what I'm doing is wrong. Instead of people knowing that there was right and wrong, now we've come to the point where nobody can now tell me what I'm doing is wrong.
Well, I don't want to sound harsh here, but a lie is a lie no matter how sweet it is. No matter how useful we find the lie to be, no matter how pleasant or comforting or reassuring, it's still a falsehood. And if we are making decisions predicated on falsehoods, we have an increased likelihood then that we're going to make a mistake. You want to have accurate, truthful information, factual information to go on. And what's crazy is even with science, you don't get absolute truth. You don't get 100%. You get pretty strong probabilities.
Science is not trying to answer truth.
Exactly. Science really just gives us very, very strong, or what I call functional certainty. Probabilities of things, and those probabilities are good enough you can fly to the moon and back with them. So I think we can rely on them and treat them as truths. But you want to use accurate information for making your decisions, because if you make a decision on inaccurate information, the decision is more likely to be a mistake.
So I'm bringing this back around with the idea that, not getting back into the gun debate or anything like that, but just the idea of what has happened with our society that has led us to where we are right now. You and I disagree on the answers of the gun debate and all that kind of stuff of what solves what, but ultimately, what has happened to our society?
That's a great question.
What has happened to our society that? I mean, I was watching this video. I was actually showing my kids, and it's just of this teenager in class yelling at his science teacher, and there's nothing the teacher can do. Teacher can't discipline him, can't do anything. And the kid knows it. The kid knows he has all the rights to stand there, yell, cuss out the science teacher, throw stuff around.
Was he telling the science teacher that we didn't come from no monkeys?
No, he was in trouble. He was supposed to sit down, and he's like, you can't effing tell me what to do. And you can't, and he's just yelling. And it's like, how do we, we got to a place in society to where people are, there's no sense of right and wrong. That student student simply didn't, it wasn't a gun that made that kid evil. It wasn't a gun that made that kid yell at what has happened to our society, because,
every school has had that student. Even when we were around, just the difference is now we have smartphones and can record it and make it go viral.
Things were done about it.
What do you mean? You mean nothing was done?
Nothing was done. The teacher couldn't. All the teacher could do was get on the phone and talk.
Ancient complaint of teachers. The student was out of line. The administration didn't back me up. There was nothing I could do. I don't necessarily think that this one recorded instance that obviously went viral is typical of every single student.
No,
in
it's
the
not typical.
nation,
No, not at
even,
all typical of every student.
I mean,
but
it's
the idea
a
that
single point of data.
What I'm getting at is talking with teachers. You know, talking online with the people who are teachers and talking about what they're dealing with. It's the issue of what's wrong with society. Why are we now at a point where people feel it's okay that they don't, the students like that, who we saw kids lash out when we were in school and stuff like that, but not like this, not with the bravery and the you can't do nothing to me attitude.
Could it be something in the coffee?
No, I think it's something missing.
I'm sipping a cup of coffee right now as I make.
I think it's something missing in the souls of our society.
Well, let's talk about our society for a second. And the role of the church here. I was thinking about this, and I'm like, 45 of the last 45 presidents, there may be one or two exceptions, like Thomas Jefferson, claim or have professed to be Christian. The majority of Congress is overwhelmingly Christian. There may be one or two atheists. There, I think, is a Hindu.
Yep.
There may be a Muslim or two. Keith Ellison, for example, I think is Muslim. But basically, they're all Christian. The Supreme Court is made of people who are Christian and Jewish. The city halls around the country, there's been this trend to put up "In God We Trust," as well as in the classrooms. It's on all of our money, and we're even putting it on police and sheriff's cars and stuff like that. It's in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. We are a nation that if Christianity had a scent, it would be just about all you smell when you go outside. So if it smelled like, flowers, we'd smell flowers. It'd smell like spring all the time. If Christianity were a scent, that'd actually be kind of nice. And in spite of this, it seems like it's not changing our world. It's not changing our society.
Well, you missed one
what is
thing.
the value of doing all of this? In God we trust, and one nation under God, and God this. And I hear God bless you all the time when people sneeze or when I sneeze, which is fine. It doesn't bother me. But it's like, we have God, 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 God everywhere. It's being plastered everywhere. Yet, like you, I kind of see that our society is kind of careening off the cliff. What's going on? Why isn't the church saving society?
You missed one major thing.
Awesome. What is it?
You said the scent around here should be Christianity based on all that. I dare you to turn on any media and find Christianity.
It's a good dare, huh? Yeah. So
so it's on our money, so it's on this. But what is being presented to the people?
What are people consuming?
What they're consuming. I dare and unless you turn on TBN,
right.
I dare you to find Christian morals, Christian theology, Christian thinking, right and wrong on media.
Right. And people are consuming what they want. Freedom. Yep. Freedom means letting others do things you don't like. But
I'm saying I really
media.
don't think that there is a scent of Christianity anymore in our society. You only pointed to, the things that people, not the things that people are consuming. The things that people are consuming, there's certainly not a scent of Christianity or morals in our media.
See, as an atheist, I kind of get the impression, and this could be the echo chamber effect of social media, is probably what some of this is. It's probably why you feel so strongly the way you think, and I feel so strongly the way I think is we're consuming the product of the echo chamber, where what we put into the social media is being echoed back at us.
Well, I didn't say social media because I know that social media is a complete echo chamber. I was talking simply about public media.
We're seeing things that are a reflection of what's in us and a reflection of our concerns and our fears. And I'm seeing a country where the whole idea of Christianity and God and all of that is being, like almost in desperation, it's being forced on us. And it's kind of having a counterproductive effect.
Kind of like somebody going, you're dying and you're drowning. Here is a life. I'm forcing this life ring on you. Please take it.
Right.
Like that?
Right. Where if you try to force something, people are going to have an instinct to reject. Whereas if you offer they are not necessarily going to have that instinctual reaction to reject.
If someone is dying if someone's in a fiery building, do you just offer to help them, or do you grab them and try to drag them out?
Well, I think you might grab them and drag them out, but if they're drowning, for example, you might not grab them. They might take you down. Mm-hmm. So it's situational, I guess.
But I'm saying it's the intent. Should we not? If I really believe...
You should want to save people. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to bring people out of the cave of darkness and religion and bring them to the light of philosophy and knowledge. Mm-hmm. You want to drag people out of the fire of hell and atheism and bring them to the safety of the church and what have you and God. And I think that's noble. That's fine. And that's why we have things like this podcast, so that our ideas can clash, and people out there who are watching can sort of make up their own minds. Yeah.
Right now, what I'm getting at is I feel that...
But we're offering when we do this.
We're offering. I would never be a person to condone a theocracy. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm aiming for. I don't want, laws based on, one certain religion or another. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about.
So you agree that the United States should be a secular state?
I believe the state
with religious freedom, mind you.
Yeah, I believe,
which I support.
I believe that the laws should be secular, but to the point to where you say if you're going to be, you have to be secular in order to be part of the government. I don't disagree, because I think that's.
Well, you can have your beliefs.
Yeah, because then you're restricting freedom for someone's beliefs, and I don't believe in that. But what I'm getting at is, I feel society is just clamoring at. Specifically when it comes to this gun thing, because it's just the one thing that they want to grab onto, which is guns are bad, and people can just get a hold of all this stuff. When in reality, the society we have is the society that our society has asked for. Mm-hmm. Our society has said, we want this in media. We don't want this in media. We want to be entertained by these things. We no longer want to be entertained by these things. And now that has backlash. That has consequences. The choices of our society to choose the forms of entertainment that they have to influence the next generation. We're reaping what we sowed. We're reaping those choices.
Sure. Yeah, you and I grew up in the 80s, and you remember Knight Rider and the A-Team, and you never saw anyone die.
Yeah.
Never saw anyone die in those shows.
But not only that, the bad guys were the bad guys and the good guys were the good guys.
Oh, yeah. It was very clear, and even you might watch the wrestling. Your family would watch wrestling.
Yeah.
And they would debate over whether or not it was real or
it wasn't.
fake.
It totally wasn't.
And there were like the good wrestlers and the bad guy wrestlers, and I think it's still the same way. I don't watch it, but I think it's still the same where there's sort of this battle between good and evil, which taps into this sort of meta narrative that
we could be totally wrong because I've never seen wrestling before.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, there you go.
We could be talking. People are like, no, it's all ambiguous now, but we got what we asked for.
Okay. Well, societies move in cycles. There are some macro influences that are at work, things such as income inequality. I mean, think about it. 30, 40 years ago, you could graduate high school and you could make a living with just a high school diploma, and you could even go so far as to buy a house if you managed your money well enough. We had labor unions that were strong, which advocated for workers. It was a different time.
Yeah.
And today, unless you have a college degree, you're probably never going to buy a house hardly, unless you really, really are good at managing money and you work really, really hard. And you probably have to have both spouses have to work, unlike in the past where you could have a single income household. If you were, let's say, a truck driver, who else's wages has slipped? Any kind of a blue-collar worker, teachers, their wages have also slipped. So that you're getting to the point where people are not able to, they're barely able to make a living and they can't get ahead. Even if you have a college degree, your job could be automated. If you're an accountant, for example, they're starting to automate even accountants, and there's even this idea that we might be able to automate some law. Lawyers.
Remember how growing up it was always like, you can't make a living, you'll be a starving artist. Now it's like artists and artistry is like the one place where
Right,
you
which is
can't
flourishing.
It's almost
Yeah.
reversed. It's like our whole industry, our whole society is built
Yeah.
around media and art and stuff like that now.
But these macro influences are also having an effect on our world. And so it's not just that we're producing and broadcasting smut on TV. It's also that people are having a hard time financially. They're having a hard
Come
time
on.
economically. Yes, they
No,
are.
no, I don't disagree with that, but that's nothing new. You go back to the
Oh, it is?
you go back to 1920. You're saying that the 1920s and 30s people were more well off than they are now.
Oh no, we had a low point then too.
Yeah, but we didn't have
that
the decay.
was-
We didn't have the moral decay.
Oh please, what about the 1920s? Jazz was a dirty word in the 1920s and 30s. You didn't use the word jazz in polite company. You didn't. And women were showing their ankles and they were cutting their hair short. Unbelievable. Smoking, women smoking, unbelievable. No, their moral decay was very much a factor in the 1920s and 30s. It was an issue.
like the school shootings and everything that we have today.
Well, no, they didn't have guns in school, but they had gum in schools. I can't believe
But I'm
brought
saying-
gum to school. Oh my
Right,
God.
but they didn't shoot each other up.
No, not necessarily. Although there were some school shootings even back then.
Yeah, but not. I mean, it's
but-
not.
Right.
It's not. You can't
And they
can't
didn't
blame
have
the moral
access
decay.
to the weapons that we have today.
Yeah, they did.
Not in the 20s.
Yes, of course they did. Machine guns didn't even get illegal until the 80s. In
Yeah,
the
but-
20s, anybody
okay.
could buy a machine gun.
In the 1920s, a machine gun was so heavy it required 2 men to carry it.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, like the Maxim machine gun and all
No,
this.
the Thompson machine gun was in the 20s and 30s. That was a single person.
Okay, but
could
those
hold.
were not widely available.
But I'm saying they were available. You could get them more.
And the gangsters
way more
used them.
available.
The
Yeah,
gangsters
way more
certainly used them.
available
Yeah,
than you
yeah.
can today.
Probably, but they just weren't widely used. They weren't widely produced, and they weren't in public circulation like they are today. And there was certainly
No.
NRA
Machine guns are
promoting
not,
and marketing them.
Machine guns
to
are
the
not
public.
in circulation today. That's what I'm saying. Back then, you had access to more firepower than you do today.
Well, actually, you probably prefer a semi-automatic to a fully automatic any. More
Depends on what you're
control,
trying to do,
right?
but
yeah, right.
Again,
right.
it depends on what you're trying to do. But what I'm saying is like access to fully militarized weapons was not restricted back then.
Okay. So I'm not sure what your overall point is, though.
My overall point. My overall point is
cyclical.
My overall point is that there is a need that human beings have a cavity in them that they want to fill.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be filled with God, and we didn't have the issues that we have today.
Are you familiar with the Great Awakenings? The first and second Great Awakenings in American history.
No.
There were periods in American history where the country sort of fell away from God. Mm-hmm. There was a sense during the 1700s and again in the 1800s. There was a sense that the nation had become more or less secular, that people were concerned with worldly things, kind of the same arguments that we're making today. Mm-hmm. And what you ended up having on the backside of that were these 2 periods of spiritual revival, where traveling preachers traveled the country, they threw up tents, they did the whole tent revival thing, and you sort of got a spiritual awakening in the country. And that kind of changed things, both times. And if you look at the second Great Awakening, you get sort of the abolition movement. You know, the abolition of slavery sort of grew out of that as a product. And these things are cyclical and they happen. And I think we will have a third Great Awakening in the United States in the future. But I think the way to go about it isn't to plaster "In God We Trust" all over, but it's actually to do the opposite. It's to not to force, but to invite. I think that's really huge. Christianity flourishes under persecution. Christianity did great during the time of the Roman Empire when Christians were being persecuted because, oh my gosh, it spread like wildfire. And
why do you think that is?
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really thought about it, and I haven't really read that much about it. But I think maybe it has something to do with people being...
truth.
Okay, well, I think it has to do with something it gives people hope during dark times. I don't think it's necessarily a function that it's true, because I'm sure Islam flourishes in dark corners too, as do every other religion. I think
Islam flourishes when it forces itself on others.
Well, I don't know about that. Islam is spreading like crazy in Europe right now, and it's not being forced on people.
Yeah, it is. It's immigrants coming in.
Yeah, immigrants are coming in, but there are Europeans who are native Europeans who are converting to Islam. Islam is the fastest growing religion on the planet right now. And it's not because everybody's running around like ISIS saying you have to convert or pay the jizya or die.
Then why would you even mention ISIS? Because that's exactly what's happening.
No, ISIS is done for the most part. Their caliphate is certainly destroyed. But I wouldn't call what's happening in countries like Sweden or the UK, which, by the way, has a Muslim mayor now, London. I wouldn't necessarily call that ISIS. These people are not being converted by the sword. They're being converted by some other means. They're feeling attracted to the belief.
When you look at it, I believe it is completely. It's not people converting; it's people immigrating.
Okay, well, maybe so. This is something
which by definition is an invasion.
Okay, well, I don't know, but I don't call immigration invasion either. But anyway, we have to look it up. I don't know why Christianity flourishes under persecution, but it does. It may just be a natural reaction when you tell somebody they can't have something, they want it more. It could be simple human psychology at that level. And I think in this country, if the atheists were to sort of gain the upper hand and we were to actually secularize the country and pull down the "In God We Trust" and remove God from the Pledge of Allegiance and take God off the money and so on, we would probably actually see the opposite effect, where Christianity actually bubbles up to the surface again and becomes very mainstream. A lot of people would adopt it because they would see that it's persecuted. It's sort of like human nature to favor the underdog. Mm-hmm. And it could be something like that. I don't know why for sure. I don't know why. I'm not going to conclude that it's a supernatural reason. But I think that's how you bring the church back. Now, if the church were to come back, what would its role be? That would be up to the church.
And in concluding this episode, I think that's why I so believe in I work at a church. What was a full disclosure? Obviously, I work at a church. We actually record these at the church. So every time we do this recording,
and it doesn't burn down.
I have to pay extra insurance when Marshall shows up on the grounds to make sure that lightning doesn't strike.
Wave at the fire marshal outside.
No, it's not true. But I that's why I truly believe that is the mission of the church is to. I believe that church is the answer, not church as in let's just set up another building and let's just set up another church. I'm saying church as in the church of God. The people of God is the church. We actually had this. Mm-hmm. We actually had this great example a couple of weeks ago in that right here in this parking lot on a Sunday morning, we could smell natural gas. What? We called PG&E. We evacuated the building. This is an hour before church services started. We evacuated evacuate the building. We had to wait for someone from PG. So we've got all of our volunteers. We're trying to get ready for church. People are showing up in about an hour, and all the people were outside. And literally, the message that day was about people going out and being the church. And so we're outside with all of our volunteers saying, "Hey, if we can't get into our building today, that doesn't mean we're not the church. This is an exact example of what we're teaching today. Right. You people are the church. We may not even be able to get into our building today, but you are still going to be the church, and we're still going to do what we do." And that's
cool.
That's what I believe is the answer for society. That's what I believe is the role of the church, the role of God in society is to be that, is to be that moral compass to keep us away from being of allowing evil to live inside of us unchecked, allowing evil to live inside of us saying, you can't tell me that what I'm doing is wrong. No one can tell me what I'm doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have to talk about morals and all of that, I imagine.
Well, that'll be for our next episode.
But I noticed natural gas, not flowers.
Huh?
You smelled natural gas, not flowers, just to be clear.
Whatever the scent is that they put in natural gas.
I'm going back to an earlier joke. or an earlier comment, if Christianity had a smell, it'd be flowers. But no, I'm glad everyone was safe. And
it turns out it was something had gotten blown loose on one of the heating units up top. So it was in the air outside. It wasn't inside. It was in the air outside. So we were able to shut it down.
And so everybody goes outside where it is.
They told us to evacuate. Well, at least it was dissipating. But yeah, there was nothing inside. We were able to go back in and they found they shut it down. And they got it fixed and everything like that. But it was one of those to where it's like, we can still be the church. Just because we can't get into the building doesn't mean that we can't be the church.
Right.
So
all right.
Well, this has been A Valid Answer. Again, we haven't mentioned the email. Email us at avalidanswer@gmail.com if you have any comments, anything that you think that we should have said to each other. Marshall, you should have said this to Scott. You should have put him in his place.
Or vice versa.
Or whatever it's going to be. Email those in, and we will discuss them and bring them up. But until next time, this has been A Valid Answer with Marshall and Scott. Thank you.